Hello and welcome to the O Block Podcast. In this episode of Supreme Stories, our discussion is on the massive Supreme Court case McDonald v. Chicago. This podcast episode is led by our host Isaac Friend, along with myself, Gabe Arbona, and my good friends Alex Rush and Michael Haas. Before we kick off this extremely formal and in-depth discussion, let's show some love to our amazing sponsor. Mascaron's Mochas. You ever get thirsty and tired in the morning? You don't? Wow, you're weird. But like every other normal person that does, Mascaron's Mochas is the one-stop shop for you. Get some tasty lattes and a latte of great food. Support your fellow Columbus community instead of going to those cheap, low-quality, big corporate chains. Led by philanthropist, motivational speaker, and educator, Mrs. Mascaron, every visit brings a new, positive memory and a great taste of fulfillment and that amazing cup of coffee. Mascaron's Mochas. More than a mocha, it's a hug and a mug.
Welcome to the official Supreme Stories, where we explore the most significant cases in American history. I'm Isaac, and today I'm joined by Alex, Michael, and Gabe. Our focus this episode is the 2010 decision in McDonald v. City of Chicago, a case that fundamentally shaped the interpretation of the Second Amendment in the United States.
Thank you, Isaac. To begin, McDonald v. Chicago addressed the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms applies only to the federal government or also to state and local governments. The case was brought by Otis McDonald, a resident of Chicago, who challenged the city's strict handgun ban, arguing that it infringed on his constitutional rights.
Chicago's law, in effect since 1982, made it nearly impossible for residents to register new handguns, and registration was required for legal possession. McDonald and others felt that this law left them unable to adequately protect themselves in their own homes, which led them to file a lawsuit.
Well put, Gabriel. The central legal question was whether the Second Amendment, which was previously interpreted in the District of Columbia v. Heller to protect an individual's right to possess firearms, also restricts state and local governments. In other words, could Chicago enforce a handgun ban if the federal government could not?
To answer this, the plaintiffs argued that the Second Amendment should apply to the states through the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause. They also referenced the Privileges and Immunities Clause, but the argument that has historically received less support.
Both the District Court and the Seventh Circuit of Appeals Court rejected McDonald's claims, citing existing Supreme Court precedent that the Second Amendment did not apply to the states. This set the stage for the Supreme Court to revisit the issue.
In a closely divided 5-4 decision, the Supreme Court held that the Second Amendment does indeed apply to the state and local governments. The majority opinion, written by Justice Alito, relied on the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause, emphasizing that the right to self-defense is fundamental to the American system of ordered liberty.
Gabriel, exceptional work. Justice Thomas agreed with the outcome, but argued that the Privileges or Immunities Clause should have been the basis for the decision. The dissenting justices, led by Justice Stevens and Breyer, contended that the gun rights should not be considered fundamental in the same way as the other constitutional protections, and thus should not be imposed on the states.
As a result of this decision, Chicago's handgun ban was invalidated, and the city was required to revise its regulations. This ruling also opened the door for further challenges to local and state gun laws across the country.
Ad break!
Thank you to our other sponsor, McDonald's.
Coffee is not as good as Mascaron's Mochas, but they were willing to pay good money so they get a shout out. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
And we're back. The legacy of McDonald's v. Chicago is significant. It clarified that the Second Amendment is incorporated against the states, meaning that the state and local government are subject to the same limitations as the federal government regarding individual gun ownership.
However, the court did not specify all the details of what regulations are permissible, so there continues to be substantial litigation over what kind of gun control measures are constitutionally acceptable.
Well done, Gabriel. This case is a clear example of how the Supreme Court interprets the Constitution to address evolving legal and social issues, and how its decisions can have immediate and widespread impact on American law and society.
Before we conclude, let's briefly discuss the judicial philosophies at play. The majority emphasize the importance of historical context and the fundamental nature of self-defense, while the dissenters focused on the state's ability to address local concerns and the diversity approaches to public safety.
Ad break!
This podcast episode is also sponsored by the Catholic Church, and specifically Pope Leo XIV. As a Chicago native, Pope Leo made sure to allocate thousands of dollars towards our podcast episode. So, we give a warm thank you to the Catholic Church and Pope Leo for their tremendous support. So, go White Sox. Kidding. The Catholic Church, it's all about Jesus.
This brings us to the end of our discussion about McDonald v. Chicago. Thank you for joining us as we examine this pivotal case. Next week, we might explore another major constitutional question and its impact on American life.
If you found this episode informative, please like, subscribe, leave a comment. And if you don't know how to braid, hit that follow button. Let's go.
And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out. We won't answer because we're graduated, but it's a thought that counts. Mrs. Mascaron will take care of you. I promise.
Thank you, Gabriel. And thank you, audience, for listening. We look forward to having you with us next time on the O Block Podcast. Thank you, and goodbye.
Ad break.
Ad break.
Ad break.
Ad break. The views and opinions shared in this episode are for educational and informative purposes only. This is not intended to provide legal advice. We've explored the legal implications and broader social impacts of this case, and listener discretion is advised. And some of the topics discussed may involve complex legal principles surrounding gun rights and the Second Amendment.